Yes, normal day for me. So hi, I'm Kassandra. I am currently fun employed, but that may change soon for reasons I can't get into. Anyway, I'm gonna go to my slides. Cool. This is all mirrored. Awesome. Actually, I'm gonna see if I can change the resolution to that without it like yelling at me. Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So, like the slides indicate, I'm here to talk about my NodeBots outfit from version 0.1.0 to 2.5.0, which is what I'm wearing right now. And I'll go into each part of the outfit in just a bit. But first, a little bit about my personal story of robots, art, and redemption. So when I was a kid, I was an inventor. I had access to a ridiculous amount of RoboLab equipment. My mom's an educator. And so every summer, she would bring home the RoboLab equipment from her school, and I would get to play with it. And I built things like vending machines and coin sorters and tennis ball throwers for the dog. And I also had the best fashion sense. My art can't quite communicate to you how awesome I looked in a yellow t-shirt and plaid pants, but I swear I rocked that. So anyway, the best fashion sense, and I was an inventor. But then I had to grow up. So I actually started my college education pursuing a degree in chemistry because I'd spent the last 4 years of high school being treated terribly by the computer science community, and so I decided, no, I'm done with this. And I was told I couldn't make a living in art, so I was told not to go to art school. So I didn't go to art school. I didn't go for a computer science degree. I ended up finishing with one, but I didn't start it. I started with a chemistry degree because I was told that being a woman in tech was terrible, and I was told all these things in high school, like, how many guys were on your team that helped you code? Every time I did a team project, they always assumed the guys did the code, things like that. And the funny thing about being a victim of the pipeline problem is it actually really prepared me for being in tech, because I get the same bullshit now that I did then, but it's really just wrapped in a faux incredulous attitude now. Like what used to be, oh, but women aren't computer programmers. Now it's, wait, you're really a computer programmer? Wait, you really do robots? So being a victim of the pipeline problem was actually kind of funny, because now that I'm in the tech scene, it's pretty much the same stuff. It's just, like I said, faux incredulous. But JSConf 2013 changed everything. I had gotten my computer science degree, but I was a front-end web developer. I wasn't an inventor anymore, and I certainly didn't do a lot of art. But what happened at JSConf 2013 is Raquel Velez and Rick Waldron gave a talk and a workshop on how to do NodeBots, and we all got a little Arduino Uno in our bag. And without them, and then additionally people like CJ Silverio and Francis Gulata and Sarah Garecki and like the NodeBots community in general, I was seriously about to quit tech just before the 2013 JSConf. I actually went as an SO. I was planning on quitting tech. And my SO at the time was a web developer, and he said, like, you should come see this. You can see this NodeBots thing. And so he dragged me to it, and I was like, oh, yeah, fine, whatever. But without them, I don't think I would still be in tech. I think I still would have quit. But because of the NodeBots community, and I'll go into why a little bit later, it's a wonderful community. If you're all interested in hardware, and you should check it out. And thanks to that, I'm back. I am totally an inventor again. I am an artist again. I am everything that little 5-, 6-year-old me wanted me, like, as an adult to be. I remember I was doing my hair last week while wearing all of this, and I thought, wow, if you told 10-year-old me that this would be me, like, now, she would lose her mind. Like, she would be supremely happy and probably wouldn't have tried to quit tech in the first place. But yeah, no, I'm back. I'm an inventor and artist again, and it's awesome. Oh, thanks. It's been a really interesting journey for the past year and a half, though. I've done all these things, learned how to do all these things. I'm naturally an introvert, and I'm mildly autistic, so keep in mind that, like, just being up on stage is still, like, a thing where I'm like, whoa, wait, what? So, yeah, I'll go into a little bit of that as well while I talk about the outfit. So, this video is my first NodeBot. Oh, it's fine if you can't hear it. Because all it is me talking to my dad. So my father is an electrical engineer, and this is from JSConf 2013. I had just built my first robot. What it was that web page, you could set the color of that RGB LED from the web page. I built that in 18 hours, thanks to Rick and Raquel's tireless dedication teaching me everything I needed to know about Arduino. Talking to my dad, so like it's no big deal. But like that's what I did in 18 hours, and that's really what sparked this. is that. Because when I learned that I could go from not knowing anything about Arduino to building that in 18 hours, I thought, well, what else can I do? What else, where else can I go? So like I said, I remembered I'm an inventor, and I remembered I'm an artist, and I spent the 3 months after JSConf 2013, I was working part-time, so I spent every moment I wasn't working on client work, I was working on robots. And I built just about everything under the sun with RGB LEDs and color, and I really like playing with light and color, so I kind of stuck to that because I wasn't like doing much else. So then I learned how not to be afraid, because most of the stuff that I've built, oh, of course the skirt's freaking out because it's demo day. Just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean it can't. I've not found a skirt like this yet. And when I wanted to build it, the first thing I did was Google to find someone else who did it so I could copy them. And when no one did it, I go, well, too bad. I'll just go build something else. And then I can't remember who. I think it might have been Raquel. She was like, why don't you just build it anyway? And I was like, oh, right, I can do that. I don't have to like wait for someone else to do this. I can do it myself. And I can code. I can stay up all night. I can do this. And the other thing is I can't be afraid of the trolls. Actually, when I built my skirt, I was worried that some stupid person would say some stupid thing at some conference and I would never want to wear the skirt again. And a lot of people backed me up and said, hey, look, you can't be afraid. You know, I know, and someone will. Actually, that was the best comfort I got, which was someone will. But you got to learn how to live past it, and you got to learn how to move through it. So, yeah. So I'm going to go into the construction of the first NodeBots Dress. And this was premiered at JSConf 2014 in June of this year. I started building it in March. I was so excited that I got started really early. I don't have a ton of photos. And I have to mention, no cats were harmed in the making of this dress, but one felt he wasn't getting enough attention. He would actually jump up in my lap and get between me and the dress and just like stare at me until I would pet him for a little bit and then he'd wander off. So that, and you can kind of even see like the cat hair on the dress because Ace wouldn't leave it alone. So about the dress, it was powered by an Esperino that I just gotten off Kickstarter. If you've never seen an Esperino before, they're about like half the size of a credit card, and they run a modified version of JavaScript like on the board. So you don't have to. There's no C, there's no Johnny 5 wrappers, there's no tethering. It's just running a modified version of JavaScript on the board. And the reason I picked the board at the time was it was the easiest, smallest wireless way to handle individually addressable RGB LEDs, which is what the skirt is. It's got one data pin, of course. Again, demo day. It just doesn't want to work up today. But anyway, so I also used a photocell, which you can see on the left side of the lapel. That was to match the lights to ambient light. These get really bright, and so what I did was when the outside was dim, they would dim, and when the outside was bright, they would get brighter so you could see them. It sounds like the inverse of what you want when you think about it. You want to be able to see them. And then I forgot to get pictures at JSConf of my dress, so that's really like the only full picture of the entire dress. So I'm going to go over what I learned, and I guess I forgot the bullet point. Take lots of pictures of it. But anyway, always bring a backup power supply. The original NodeBots Dress was powered by a lithium polymer battery. The lithium polymer battery's headers fell off the day before the conference. And I'm not confident enough in my soldering to put a 500-degree soldering iron near a lithium polymer battery. I don't know many people that are. So what I ended up doing was taking, you know those big old batteries you can plug a USB cable into to like recharge your phone? I ended up putting one of those in my purse, running the cable through to the back of the dress to power the microcontroller, and using that as a power supply. So always bring a backup power supply. Hardware debugging 50 RGB LEDs is tricky, and I think I'm really proving that right now with the fact that my skirts decided to freak out today. And that I love making wearable robots. All of the strife, all of the blood, and there was blood, I can't sew very well, all of the everything that went into that dress, the second I had a 6-year-old girl walk up to me and ask, can I do this? Or can I do this when I grow up? And I looked down at her and went, you can do this now. That made everything worth it. So I learned from that project that I love doing this. I love making wearable robotics that do light and color and possibly sound and all sorts of stuff. So I really dove into it after that. And so when I got home from JSConf, I knew immediately I was going to build an outfit. I was going to take apart the dress, figure out what went wrong, because there were a few things that went wrong, and rebuild. And so it started with the skirt I'm wearing right now, which is the first part of version 2. This premiered at Thunderplains JS about 2 months ago, and other than the flight here, it's never really sustained any damage. I think someone cut a wire in it because like a really thick wire was cut when I got here. So I don't know if the TSA just decided to get wire cutter happy or whatever, but there was actually some damage to it when I got here. But other than that, it's been pretty darn resilient. It's still powered by an Esperino, mostly because I just really like the Esperino code, and I already had all my algorithms written for it, so I rewrote it for the Esperinos. It's actually the same LEDs. I took apart the old dress. It does not exist anymore in a current state, mostly because the wiring was so awful that I would have had to redo all of it to keep the dress, and because it was sewn in, I accidentally made a couple holes trying to rewire it, and I was just like, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to take the LEDs and recycle them. Plus, these disc LEDs that come from Adafruit are not the cheapest. A sheet of 25 is like $35, so you know, I definitely wanted to reuse. It has a new wiring system. Part of the reason the right side of the skirt is freaking out and not the left is I split the power into several different rails because this is one chain of LEDs. And before, when I would put just one power and one ground rail, the last LED in the skirt would not be nearly as bright as the first. So I learned to fork the power into 4 different rails so that all 4, I could split it up into 4 different chains, and they all pretty much have the same brightness. So that's the more stable power system. What I learned from the skirt, I still need conductive thread tech to get better. I really, really do. You show me a Kickstarter for a conductive thread that isn't really, really awful, and I will find $1 million. I will. Thin wires, which I used 26 gauge silicone coated thin wires, they're great for flexibility, but they break for no reason. You look at one of these wires funny and they break. So I actually ended up rewiring the front of the skirt before I went to NodeBots with thicker wire. So I have to like adjust, like I have to move the skirt because if a wire bends, it'll bend the cloth with it, but it also doesn't break for no reason. And then when I finished the skirt, I thought, well, okay, that's cool, but now what? Where do I go next? So then, while I was debuting the dress, I got a little bit inebriated. And I ended up talking to a gentleman named Ryan Day. Maybe you've met him. He works for Pinocchio. And apparently, I talked myself into a dev kit for Pinocchio because he handed me this little cardboard box. And then I woke up the next morning, I'm like, oh, what? I don't remember this. And sure enough, there was a Pinocchio in it. And so the first thing I thought of was a pair of shoes, because left, right, you know. So if you've never seen a Pinocchio before, they're a mesh networking robotic system. They speak to each other with a low power radio, and then the lead scout for any troop has a Wi-Fi shield, or can have a Wi-Fi shield, that will communicate with the internet. So in the case of my shoes, the left shoe has a Wi-Fi shield, which is connected to my phone's hotspot, and the right shoe is just a regular troop, and it gets information from the internet by communicating with the left shoe. So it's, like I said, it's powered by Pinocchio. I have a Nitrous server that pulls down my Twitter user stream and watches for favorites. And when someone favorites something I've tweeted online, the shoes turn gold. Right now they pulse purple. The other thing I can do online, which is kind of fun, is I can use their HQ. So right now, I don't know, you can kind of see they're pulsing purple. I can actually tell. I've done this demo enough that I can type with one hand and hold my foot up and stand on one foot. So I'm going to change these red. Actually, I think that's righty, so I think I'm going to change the other shoe. So I'm going to wait for success. It takes a second sometimes. It worked? Oh, it did, didn't it? All right, so now you can kind of see, maneuver. It's now pulsing red. So this is kind of what the last speaker was getting into with the dedicated cloud. They set this up for you when you set up a troop. So you have this at your disposal. And all I do with my little Nitro server is I tell it, when there's a favorite, call this function that makes it flash gold. So, yeah. Neat stuff. So, yeah, really cool platform. Really easy to debug as well, especially because, so for waterproofing, what I did was each Pinocchio is in a waterproof Radio Shack enclosure, and then I just drilled holes for the wires and then hot glued around the wires to re-waterproof it. So they're waterproof, thank goodness. Florida would have been interesting without that. And, yeah, so, oh, my electric imp's falling out, pardon me. I've got robots falling out everywhere. Is that still flashing? Yes. Anyway, robotics demos are hard. Robotics is not hard. Robotics demos are hard. So what I learned from the shoes is people will almost always laugh when you say something like, hold on, I got to charge or debug or ping my shoes. People will almost always laugh when something like that comes out of your mouth. And now I have it with my hat too. And so sewing into Converse is easier than you think if you just get the right sewing needle. And like I said, sometimes being drunk yields free hardware. Research is ongoing. I got a lot of free hardware at NodeBots and I drank a lot of booze. I don't know, correlation, causation. So I'm now working on version 3. I'm halfway through version 3. I'm at 2.5.0 with this. If you can see, it's actually the NodeBots logo. That's because this was part of the NodeBots goodie bag. And actually the wearable speaker put regular LEDs and like a battery, and so it was just like a regular circuit. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to put RGB LEDs in it. So I sat there and like soldered RGB LEDs into a beanie, and this is what I got out of it. It's powered by an electric imp, which is actually really cool, and I can actually show you because I didn't sew it into the hat. I totally wasn't being lazy. I did it on purpose. So the electric imp is, it looks like an SD card. So this little SD card looking thing is the microcontroller. And so like you plug it into a shield like you would plug an SD card into something, and like it's got the pins on the shield. And then in my case, it doesn't have a battery like connector, so I kind of put the battery connector on the pins because, you know, what's that legal disclaimer about not, you know, mimicking me? That might be good right now. Battery just fell out, didn't it? See, I told you, robots demos are hard. Robots aren't hard. Really. Clumsy me today. But anyway, yeah, it still needs some code for interactivity. It actually just cycles through rainbows when it's hooked up to power, which I can still do this. Come on. There we go. Now you get back there. So yeah, and what I learned from this project is that beanies are way hackable. Getting conductive thread through the cloth of a beanie is just the only trick is leaving enough conductive thread so that when the beanie fabric stretches, you have enough conductive thread in there to not snap, because it does not stretch. Also, C number 1 of what I learned from the shoes, yeah, people will really find it funny when you say, hold on, I gotta ping my hat. Squirrel is weird. It's their language, cool weird. And they have this agent device set up, which I think is really cool, because it's kind of what I've set up for myself with my other projects. So this is their IDE. And so you get a device, and you program in Squirrel the device code, and then you can implicitly tell it to ping the agent, which is the code on the left. I actually haven't done anything with the agent yet, but they set all this up for you, and they give you a nice little URL. I should make this a little bigger. They give you a nice little, whoa, not that. A nice little URL at the top that lets you access your agent from, like, say, a Node server or whatever. So you can do a minimal amount of Squirrel and then just, like, push it off to a Node server for all the processing and whatever. So that's really cool. And then, yeah. So I have one last kind of wearables project that I'm still working on. So somebody at Spark dropped this off at NodeBots. It's called their Internet button. And it's got 11 RGB LEDs. I've got their little battery shield on it so that it can run without wires. And then on the back, it's got 4 buttons, and it's got an accelerometer on it. I want to make a wireless presentation advancer with it so that it changes colors as I move, and then I hit the button to advance my slides, but I'm not quite there yet. Just wanted to show that off because that's a really neat thing. And the photon's going to be awesome. Really, really cool stuff coming up there. So, back to my slides. I also built a bunch of other stuff this year that wasn't wearables. I have an NPM module called Open Pixel Control for controlling large amounts of RGB LEDs with BeagleBone. Okay. Oh, so the project on the left, that's 1,024 individually addressable RGB LEDs that I have arranged into a panel. At Cascadia, what it did is it would take your picture with a Tessel and then pixelize your picture and then put it on the grid. And I have a really cool picture of Carter in sunglasses on the grid. It looks so cool. But yeah, I know. But you chose to wear those cool lime green sunglasses with the red shirt. Like, it really kind of showed off what the. I really like the picture of the I think like the toddler, like, who was just like staring at the light grid, so his eyes are all big, and he's like, and you can see his forehead and his eyes. Anyway, flicker's a thing. So, and then I built a name tag that kind of broke, but I'm still working on getting that back to normal. And I guess I put the picture of the internet button up there too. I also helped run 2 NodeBots Days in Austin. So NodeBots Day is July 27th of every year. I say I helped run. I really didn't do all that much. Ray Pierce actually did like 90% of the work, and I just kind of like stood there. So he's the best, and I had to give him a shout out because the two NodeBots Days we've had, 2013 we had 10 attendees. And everybody walked home with a SparkFun Inventors Kit, thanks to local sponsors. This year, we had 30 Spark cores delivered to my house, one for each attendee. We did have 30. We ended up with 35. We let 5 other people in after registration ended. And then we did the Puzzle bots, the little Sumo bots. And yeah, 30 attendees. We also had Donovan Buck, who's doing some really cool stuff with hexapods, come keynote from Houston. So the NodeBots community in Austin is thriving and growing, and it's really fun to see. So the things I've learned from NodeBots Day are more about community than about NodeBots. And I feel like those are inexorably linked because NodeBots is such an amazing community. We have a code of conduct for everything, for our contributions, for our forums, for everything. There is a code of conduct to be involved in the NodeBots community. And I really appreciate that on a level that I can't really articulate very well. The things I learned about community, code is by no means the only way to contribute. You don't need a pull request to be a contributor to a community. If you have docs, if you've helped people, if you've taught people, if you've done Node School, you've contributed to the Node community. Like, just because you don't have a pull request on Node Core, because who does? Like, there's 20 of them for reals. And you've still contributed to the community. You're by no means not a member of the community just because you haven't contributed directly code. There are many, many ways to contribute to a community, even if it's just helping out a newbie. Codes of conduct are important, and feel free to argue this with me off stage all you want, because I'm not going to budge. Codes of conduct are extraordinarily important. And the last thing I learned is do not ever make assumptions about people, ever. Because I've learned that's the easiest way to say something remarkably silly, is to assume something about a person by how they look, or by an arbitrary thing you might know about them. Like, for instance, I have friends with various visual and hearing impairments, and if I assume they can't do something without asking them first, well, I easily look like a yutz most of the time. So the number one thing I've learned about community that I think kind of makes everything else work is don't make assumptions about people, regardless of what you know about them already. Like, just ask. It's a lot easier. And seriously, we do have some issues with community. I was at RobotsConf last weekend, and it got out that my dad is an electrical engineer. And I had a guy come up to my booth, and he goes, "Oh, so your dad built these?" Yeah, right? That gasp right there? Really, right? Like, oh my gosh. Like, I actually was silent for about 3 seconds, and people who know me know that's amazing. I just kind of stared at him for 3 seconds, and I go, "Excuse me?" And he goes, "Well, your dad built these, right? And then you kind of coded them." What? Do you want a shovel? And I apparently I told him to just get the hell away from my booth. Like, I just like told him to go away. Yeah, that happened in 2014. I had a name tag, and I'm going to be honest, and I haven't really told the story. I don't want to rebuild my name tag because some guy at a party was like, "Now I have an excuse to stare at your chest," because I had a color-changing name tag that was an LCD. For real, in 2014. That happened. So the last bullet is, do I seriously need to be talking about this in 2014? Yeah, I really do, because this stuff still happens and we all need to be aware of it. I think NodeBots is easily the best community I've been involved in. This is not a thing that happens to me at all regularly with NodeBots. I've had a couple of isolated incidents, but when I get out into like the real world, it happens a lot more often. So keep it, think about what you say, because it can really, really affect people in ways that you may not understand. But luckily for me, my love for robots and Node and JavaScript and the amazing people in the Node and NodeBots community, many of whom are sitting in this room right now, outpaces my anger and fear and frustration at the system I live in. I will break down and cry sometimes. I will break down and get upset. I will break down and spew expletives for minutes on end. But luckily, my love of robots in the community is going, hopefully forever, outpace my anger and fear and frustration. And so I'm not going anywhere. So what you can do to join me, if you're interested in NodeBots specifically, forums.nodebots.io. We're kind of picking up steam. It doesn't have a ton of posts yet, but we're working on it. And your local NodeBots meetup day, whatever, Brian Hughes runs the NodeBots SF. And in fact, they're doing an event on Saturday. I'll be there with this giant suitcase of robotics I've been carrying all month. And I'll be working on different projects. I want to see what you build. The community does too, but like I specifically, me and like this person wants to see what you build. I love it when people email me or tweet at me with things that they built. Even if it's just like, look, I got an LED blinking. I still want to see that. It's awesome and amazing, and it makes me happy to see it. And when you document and write about what you did, also write about what went wrong, because people learn so much more about what went wrong with your project than what went right. So always own up. Well, it's not even owning up. It's just like saying, like, oh, I made this decision and it didn't work out, and here's why. So thanks for listening. That's just a really funny GIF, like that cat and that banana. Like, I can't. I just like he's just so possessive of that freaking banana, and it's like, and at the end, the best part is right now. That right there. Where he's just sitting in the hallway, like. Anyway, I love that GIF. I'm NodeBotanist on Twitter and GitHub, and that's my email address if you want to email me your awesome projects. I'm surprised that battery's still alive. But yeah, thanks for listening, and yeah.